Here's a review of the 2018 Genesis G80. This is a good one. I'll see you on the other side and let's get into it. Before we dive into the walk around, I just want to do a brief history of Genesis. They introduced, well, it was first known as Hyundai. They just called their luxury sedan the Genesis. And that happened in 2008 when they unveiled the first Genesis sedan. Then in 2015, they made a dedicated brand called Genesis. So it started with a car called Genesis, and then they completely separated themselves from Hyundai and just called themselves Genesis now. They have three big sedan, well, I should say one big sedan, which is the G90, which I'm not reviewing today, the G80, which I am reviewing today, and then the G70, which just came out this past year. And those three vehicles line up with these three segments. So the G90 lines up with like the 7 Series from BMW, the S-Class, as well as Lexus's LS. And then the G80 is going to line up with the BMW 5 Series, the Mercedes E-Class, as well as the Lexus, who knows at this point, the ES or the GS, kind of that same size. And then last but not least, the G70 lines up with the 3 Series, the C-Class, as well as the Lexus IS. There's Infiniti and Acura vehicles mixed kind of in there as well, but I feel like this Genesis is above the Acura brand, and then it's on par, if not slightly ahead of the Infiniti brand, based off of my review, which we'll get into in a second. But let's head over to the walk around and get into the details of this specific car from Genesis, the G80. Here is the 2018 Genesis G80. It's really unchanged for 2019. I think the base model with the 3.8 liter engine, you're going to have an option to get this sport package, which we'll get into details a little bit on this car. This particular vehicle has the 3.3 liter twin turbo. It is a complete gem of a motor. You can also get this vehicle available with a 5 liter V8. You know, I would go with a 3.3 liter. I felt like I didn't need any more power, but let's just get into the walk around here. So this car came to America in September 2016, and as a 2017 model. This particular vehicle has a sport package on it. So it's got some fancier wheels, and it's got this chrome on it that is, I would call it a copper chrome. And you also see that copper around the headlights as well. It's quite an attractive package. Here I turned the lights on. I started the walk around without the lights on, then I turned them on. Fully LED, which you'll see here in a little bit. They're pretty proud of that. Genesis, I'll pause here, full LED system. You know, I feel like they didn't need to put that in there, but it looks good. Those lights look very premium. Now the grille. Let's talk about this grille, and let's also talk about the badge a little bit. When Genesis first came out as a luxury brand, I didn't know much about them. I knew it was Hyundai's luxury brand, but I really didn't know anything other than that. So this logo, when I would see it from afar, and I lived in Florida at the time, so when I saw this logo from afar, and I never saw this car before, the first thing I thought was, this could be a new weird looking modern Bentley, you know, and I'll put the Bentley emblem right up so you can see it. You can see the front camera there for the 360 camera, which is okay. I don't think it's as well done as some of the other competitors. I feel like it's better done in a Lexus. And then this big plastic piece in the front of the grille, which I really don't like. I feel like it detracts from the grille quite a bit. It is for the radar cruise control. I feel like once their technology gets better, they'll be able to put it somewhere else, but it's really, I don't like it. And the other manufacturers have been able to hide it behind their logo. So Lexus has that big L, that's a huge L in front of their car. They hide that radar cruise control sensor behind there. So their emblem doesn't really allow for anything like that. It's not quite big enough. But you can see here, so the styling of this vehicle, it almost looks Mazda in some ways. It looks Mercedes and BMW in a lot of ways. So it's very conservative. It's very attractive. I really like the design of this car, even though it doesn't really have so much of a unique persona to it. Here are those sport wheels, those 19-inch wheels look really, really good. And look how good those brake calipers look. as well. I just think they did an amazing job on the wheels, and I can't always say the same for the Lexus F Sport wheels, for example, but they did a really good job here. And you can see that copper chrome around that center cap, and you have a nice little chrome running strip there at the bottom, and then you have a dark chrome around the windows here, which looks super sharp. Yeah, this car is just, it's a really good looking sedan. Very handsome. Oh, and by the way, this color is called Polar Ice, which is very, very proper and for this weather. So in the back here, very good looking. I know I say very a lot, I'm sorry. I need to find other words to add emphasis. But this back end looks great. The taillights look really good. The diffuser there at the bottom looks spot on. And then the quad tip exhaust for the dual exhaust looks extraordinary. And they have a nice little honeycomb around those exhausts. And there's those LED lights. You can't really get a good idea of them during the daytime. And the 3.3t badge there. And then here is the back profile of the vehicle. Very good looking car altogether. That's just the beginning, because not only is the exterior impressive, the interior is pretty good, but the driving experience was A+ in my opinion. But let's get into the next part. Getting on the inside of the 2018 Genesis G80, and let's get this bad boy fired up. You can see it's a little frosty this morning. There's your start button. Now, these are the small details that I appreciate. This is illuminated here, and you also have illumination here for off, accessory, and then on. So I do appreciate the small little details like that. Baby fires right up as you would expect a 2018 vehicle to do so. This is the only startup screen. We have nothing going on over here. And let's just tone down those jets real quick. The nice thing, I can put on auto, but you can see, wow, this is taking actually a really long time to start up. I don't know if this is normal, but that is taking pretty long. Let's just look at the clock here. I'm not going, finally showed up. This is your interface to control everything on the screen here. Very reminiscent to most other car makers with this little knob here that you can spin it as well as move it up and down like a joystick. Navigation screen, it is pretty big. I don't know exactly the size of this. I'll have to put it up there for you guys. It looks like about a 10-inch screen or so, and it is touchscreen, so you can move around. I'm not going to be going too much over this interface today. Just know that it is pretty straightforward, and your buttons to navigate through there are also going to be in here. So the beeps for the screen are pretty loud though. Just keep that in mind. I'm sure there's a way you can adjust that. Heads-up display, yes, we do have a heads-up display in this car. I don't know if you can see it with the frosty. Yes, you can see that little 0 there. But we'll wait for the screen to become defrosted to see it a little bit better. I do like the traditional gauges here. Your tachometer, engine, coolant temperature, oil temperature, fuel gauge, as well as your speedometer. I like the traditional gauges. I like the range there at the top. Your information on the screen with these buttons here. There's your radar cruise button, heads-up display. I'll select that, and you can adjust the height, the brightness, content select. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's a lot easier to use in my opinion than the Lexus system. I do appreciate that quite a bit. And I just like the simplicity of it. It's right there for you guys to see and to navigate through. Here's going to be some of your radar, or not your radar cruises over here. This is going to be your radio controls, voice controls. This will be for your stations as well as your volume, phone controls. Very similar to a Lexus vehicle, to be honest. Paddle shifters here on the back. They feel very plasticky. Definitely not up to my standards. I'm kind of spoiled with the Lexus. Now, I do notice this. I saw something like this in the K900 review from Doug DeMuro. For the paddle shifter, you have a bump here that goes out for positive gear shift. And on the back here, you have a bump that goes in like a divot, a dimple, to let you know it's a negative gear shift. The pedals are exquisite, very high detail aluminum. They remind me a lot of the S-Sport pedals you see on the Lexus vehicles. Here are a lot of your safety features. Lane keep assist. Here is your rear sunshade. Let's just take a look at that. Same sort of technology you see it in the Lexus vehicles. So I do appreciate it. It looks good. I always love watching those. Over here is your traction control blind spot monitor, automatic lift gate for your trunk. That's a nice feature. Lane keep assist, etc. That's how you brighten. Parking button here. Blue illumination for your mirrors. Self-explanatory here for your mirror controls. All auto windows. This is plastic here, but you know, it feels very solid, very high quality plastic. Here is going to be that leather material that goes all the way up. We kind of have an orange stitching, or I would call it more of a bronze stitching that you saw on the outside of the vehicle with the bronze accents, you know, and the lights and the wheels and such. We have real carbon fiber in here. Very nice touch. Nice door handle. It feels very premium. This lock doesn't look very premium, but the door handle itself looks and feels a little bit more premium. I do like this speaker grille cover. It looks sharp. Your memory seats here, and we have that carbon fiber trim that runs all the way across the dash and onto the back, and even you see it on the back doors as well, which we'll get into the back in a little bit. Seats are very stiff, but they are comfortable. Lots of room in them. I feel like my butt has a lot of room to slide around, which for handling might not be the best thing, but for comfort it is a good thing. So you got to try to strike a balance, and I feel like they did a good job. They're not the most comfortable seats. I would say they're definitely more on the firm side. And there you can see the overall design of the door. You have those vertical lines here for the stitching on the leather, and then you have the stitching on the armrest. It's very simple, and a huge pocket there down below the huge speaker. We have Lexicon. I don't know anything about Lexicon. If you guys know, please let us know in the comments what the heck Lexicon is. We have stitching over the gauge tent. I don't know I always forget the word for this thing. It's a gauge dome of some sort that covers it. Let's go ahead and hit those windshield wipers, and then let's get a better look at this heads-up display. There you go. You can see it there. It kind of has a bluish tint to it. It's not the most high quality. And its range seems to be very limited. Now I need to adjust it. Let's see if I can, there we go. I need to adjust it so I can see it a little bit better from where I'm sitting. But if you're not directly on, it really dims out quickly. So that's why it's really hard for me to find it on the camera, because unless you're in the perfect, there you go, perfect line of sight, it really fades out quick, which is unfortunate. So I like that they included it. I don't like that it doesn't seem to, I already lost it, you see. It doesn't seem to be very omnidirectional. I don't know if that's the right word. Compass there on the big mirror, big rear mirror. You have your garage controls here. I don't know if you can see that, but you do have your garage controls and some other safety features from Genesis. Up here, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open this huge sunroof so you can see, and it kind of opens up from the middle. It's not the traditional one that goes all the way back. It opens from each side, and I do like that feature. I don't think I've ever seen that on a vehicle, and this is probably the biggest panoramic sunroof and the best one, meaning this has like a very minimum space here that's eating up into the window. Sometimes you see this about twice the size, and it really takes away from the panoramic experience. But overall, this panoramic roof is probably the best I've ever seen on a sedan. Back to the steering wheel. I would say it's okay quality. It's definitely better than your average Hyundai. But this here, I love the badge. I do think they did a really good job with their emblem being a new luxury brand. I do like it. I always confuse it a little bit from a distance with Bentley. When I first saw these vehicles come out, I thought, hey, I'm like, is that a Bentley? I've never seen that Bentley before. Because from a distance, this has a very similar silhouette to the Bentley emblem. Don't hate on me for that. When Genesis came out, no one really knew about it unless you're like a car freak, which I kind of am. At the time, I wasn't. So here you have the stitching. It's okay. I would say it's adequate for the price point. It's almost as good as Lexus, and if you're almost as good as Lexus stitching, you're doing a pretty good job, in my opinion. Here's the gear shift. It's a leather material around it, very high quality. In here is going to be a USB aux and a wireless charger. Very nice feature there. This material is kind of ribbed plastic. It doesn't look premium, but it doesn't look bad. It's just a simple design, and I do like it overall. Drive modes are here. Very interesting. So if I press sport, if I press it again, there's normal. So Eco Sport, normal, just like a Lexus vehicle. I'm going to keep it in normal for now. And you can see that little snowflake down there that lets you know that the roads could be icy. We get the same thing in a Lexus vehicle. So I do appreciate, there's a lot of things I'm seeing in here that Genesis is trying to take from its successful competitors that have been in the game for a long time, and they're doing a really good job in my opinion. Here are your heated and ventilated seats. This button, it's kind of in a weird spot. I feel like it should be somewhere by the blind spot monitor, but let's press it and see what happens. Absolutely nothing happened, so we're going to put it in reverse, and nothing is happening again when I press this button. So I don't know what the stipulations have to be for this button to work, but you can see the top-down camera here. The front cameras are a little fogged over. That's why you see a loss of detail there. The back one is not fogged over. So it just looks weird because right here is brighter and this is darker and this is darker. But if you look at the backup camera, it's perfectly visible. So very interesting. Let's just try some of these other buttons here to give us a different, I like that too. So I feel like they do a really good job, and they give you options. In a Lexus vehicle, you don't have those options. I should say you don't have as many options there, but let's just put it back in park. Park is a button right up here. All right, and it instantly goes back to your navigation screen. Parking assist is here, and again, when I'm pressing it, nothing is happening. I don't see anything going on the screen here, so that's kind of disappointing. Alcantara on the roof line, very high material. It doesn't feel as dense as a Lexus Alcantara. It feels a little bit fluffier. It still feels good overall. Armrests, again, have that bronze stitching, and this will open up like so. You have a 12 volt, another USB. I mentioned you had one up in the front there. You have one back here, a coin tray which you can take out, but a good little storage, and it is lined with felt throughout, so that should help with reducing noise of things moving around. Now this coin tray, there we go. I guess it only fits there. If you try to move it other places, it will fall down into that hole. This door is very large. You can see this vehicle does have privacy shades, which is a very nice addition. Usually you don't see that. Usually you don't see privacy shades in a vehicle this price point. So it's a nice and welcome addition here in this G80. Again, the carbon fiber back here, we have a soft touch plastic. I don't know if this is just me, but this dinosaur skin fake material that we see in a lot of vehicles in the industry, I don't like. I'm not a big fan of it. I think it looks really cheap and outdated, but that's just me. I wonder what do you guys think this dinosaur skin texture it needs to go by the way of the dinosaur as well, so let me know. Again, that same high quality plastic, and then you have just one button back here for the window, a big speaker here, and then again a duplication of the front speaker up there back here. We have nice high quality mat pockets on the back of the seat. High quality on the back seat, it's very stiff, more of that dinosaur skin. And then it just feels very well put together. Now, if the driver was super tall in front of me, my knees had to dig into the back of this, it wouldn't be the most comfortable because it is more of a hard material. But you know what? It's way better than a lot of the Audis I get in. The Audis will have just like a big plastic cutout here, and you hit your knee on it and your knee's all bruised up. It's a tall person problem, but this is definitely more forgiving than the Audi plastic. You can see back here some old school climate controls, the best way I could say this. You don't have buttons or digital, but you know, this is extremely responsive. Hot air, now it's cold. It only took about a second or two to go from hot to cold. That is incredible in my opinion, and very simple. I can close that off, no air. Wow. Even though this looks kind of old school and not the most premium, I would take this dial over any sort of button system because it works so well and it's just easy, it's simple. No connectivity right here. Here's a big drive shaft because you know this car is rear wheel drive or all wheel drive. This particular one is rear wheel drive. Nice armrest here. So just looking at these seats back here, they are high detail. You have that nice bronze stitching. Beautiful seats back here. They're not the most detailed, but they're very comfortable. Pulling down this armrest, and we have heated rear seats, something you don't see in any Lexus vehicle, at least not in the States, unless you spend about $80,000 or more on the LS 500. So very welcome addition back here. And we have controls for that rear sunshade as well. There it goes. And I pressed it midway and it goes right back up. Cup holders back here. Overall, I'm really impressed with the interior of this G80 so far. But let's see in the very, very back. Let's get in the trunk and see how that works out. Yeah, real quick. There is a pass-through. These seats aren't going to fold down, but we have a nice pass-through. You can see into the trunk there. But let's get into the trunk now. Opening the trunk, very large. I love the Genesis med kit here, and it's branded. You can see the same exact med kit in the Kia K900. Of course, they are the same, you know, automaker, but different brands. You know what I'm talking about. The very large trunk. Here are the mats. They look brand new. This car's pretty much brand new. It's got 11,000 miles on it. Yeah, that's about it for the trunk. I'll put the exact volume if you guys care. I really don't. All I know, this trunk is huge, and it's gonna, you know, satisfy the vast majority of potential buyers. And we're off in the 2018 Genesis G80. I'm really excited to drive this car. I've heard really amazing things about this vehicle, just from owners. You know, the people that come to our dealership looking at our vehicles, you know, they enjoy their Genesis so much that it's hard for them to get out of it and get into a Lexus that costs a lot more money, especially when they're looking at like the LS, for example. But there is value there in the LS. It is an amazing vehicle. But if you already have a Genesis, it's going to be hard to convince you to get out of it, especially if it's been reliable for you. You know, one of the best selling points of a Lexus is going to be its reliability. And these Genesis vehicles, no one really knows long term what the reliability is going to be like. So it is a small risk, but you know what? Everything breaks over time anyway. So let's just talk about this vehicle now. And the first thing I'm noticing is that the ride, I was expecting it to be a lot stiffer, maybe more like an Audi. And there is quite a bit of road noise coming from the tires, but I'll reserve final judgment as I drive this car a little bit more. Initial brakes are very strong, very touchy, not as linear as I would like it to be, but I'll get used to it. But yeah, they're very, very strong. Very little travel makes this vehicle stop really quickly. And some people might prefer that. It's not my cup of tea, but it's going to take some getting used to, that's for sure. So I mentioned road noise coming from the tires, but from the windows, the air noise and vehicles going by, I'm not really hearing a whole lot, which is pretty impressive. So we'll get into the throttle a little bit here. There's a Honda Pilot in front of me, so I'll let them get some space. This car's been running for a while now, so I know it's fully warmed up. And we're gonna roll under the throttle and see what this... Yeah, there's a lot of torque there. That's, wow, okay. Definitely faster than a Lexus GS. Not a GSF, but a GS. This car has a lot of torque, and I'm very, very excited to test this vehicle out because it's so much different than anything we have currently at Lexus. We have a 3.5 liter V6 that has a lot more power, not a lot more, about 50 more horsepower that you see in the LS 500. And that car also has significantly more torque, but I'm really excited to test out a Genesis. I just don't get the opportunity to drive these vehicles. So I'm gonna punch the throttle. I'm going about 52. One downshift and it immediately went. However, it wasn't the right gear. Yeah, I floored it, but it should have downshifted twice. And there's a good amount of torque there, but it's not the most that this engine can do. So I'm gonna put it in sport mode here, and we're gonna do the same little test. We're gonna go about 52, and I'm gonna punch it. There it goes. It downshifted twice, and then it scoots. Wow, this is really, really impressive. Now, unfortunately, in sport mode, it really hangs on to those gears. I don't think there's a custom mode that you can make, like a more expensive vehicle like an LS 500, for example. You can kind of custom make your sport modes, but that is very impressive in sport mode. I just don't like, I mean, that's just the nature of sport mode. It's going to hang on to the gears longer. And I'm going to do that again. 3, 2, 1, punch. Gosh. Yep, I don't feel like I need more power, but I'm still hanging at 5,000 RPM. So it really hangs on to that I'm still hanging on to 4,000. So it's still hanging on to that gear. So like that mode right there is what I would call Sport Plus mode in our Lexus vehicle. In our Lexus vehicles, you have normal mode, and then you have Sport and Sport Plus when you're in an F Sport model. But in this vehicle, it seems like it goes to like, you know, fairly conservative normal to extremely sporty with its driving characteristics. I don't really fault them for the sport mode. They just need to have, like, that is what I would call Sport Plus mode. They need to have a mode in between that mode and normal mode for more spirited day-to-day driving. That mode would be perfect for a track. That's how aggressive it is, and you know, no one's going to take this car to a track. It is addictive when you get into that throttle. I'm just going to hit it again, and it actually did it that time in normal mode. I hit the throttle. Its downshifts were a little bit slower, but it actually got to the right gear. So that's just telling me it's not super consistent with its downshifting in normal mode. It doesn't always know which gear to pick. So that's kind of unfortunate, but that is, I can't fault it too much. That's kind of a result of having just 8 gears, and modern computers not always knowing what's best for the driver's input. But I'm going to hit it again. Perfect downshift, and I'm gone. So a few of you may be wondering how I would compare this to the Lexus GS. I feel like if this motor was in the GS, the vehicle would be absolutely perfect. The GS is a great sports sedan. This vehicle does a lot of those things that the GS does so well, and it does them just as well, if not and better in some of them. I feel like the handling is better on this vehicle than a GS. The power and the torque is definitely a lot better than the GS. I'm not saying the GSF, but that GSF is going to cost a lot more than this vehicle. For the price point, I would have a hard time picking the GS over this vehicle. The GS just hasn't been updated. This car has just so much technology in it. It feels much more modern. This feels like a modern GS. How about that? Maybe not the same quality of materials. It's probably not going to be quite as reliable, but that's really hard to say because this vehicle is so new. So we really don't know what the reliability, so you would be taking a risk there. But this vehicle is just really good overall, and for the price, it's really hard not to recommend in this segment. I feel like if you're shopping for a GS, you definitely need to take a look at this vehicle because it is such a good value. You're getting a lot for your money, a lot of performance, a lot of luxury, a lot of technology. And it is blended really well. They do a lot of things really well with this vehicle. I don't feel like it has any major weaknesses. The only thing I can say is the brakes are a little too touchy for my liking. But overall, yes, this is definitely a worthy competitor to the Lexus GS, and it definitely feels like a luxury vehicle in a lot of ways. But overall, I'm just really impressed with this Genesis G80, and I think the traditional luxury brands need to definitely worry about this brand. The thing is, they're not really that worried because this is just a small player in the ball game. It's a new brand. No one really knows about it. They have a lot of battles to fight, but when you have a product this good, it's only going to be a matter of time before the masses know about this. So now I'm on the highway here. It's very quiet. There is a little bit more wind noise, but it is extraordinarily windy today. So that was an awesome indication of blind spot monitors working, because I have the rear sunshade up and that's not helping me with my blind spot monitor. But I started to merge a little bit and the blind spot monitor went off. I had visual warnings, but you also heard that chime. We're going to test the brakes here, not 120%. There's a Honda Accord in front of me that is braking extraordinarily early, but I'll get into the brakes. There's just not a lot of travel in them. So the brakes are really good. I'd probably give them a B+. Brakes, it stops the car really well. Let's accelerate this car. A little bit of wheel spin. and it sorts itself out pretty well with the traction control. Again, this is a rear-wheel drive model. You can get this in all-wheel drive as well. But I'm really impressed so far with this vehicle. It is a little bit on the sporty side, and that's okay. Just because it's trying to do a lot of things. It's trying to give you the luxury of a Lexus on the inside, and it's trying to give you the sport of a BMW. And I feel like it gives you a good balance between those luxury cars. This motor is a complete gem. I would give it a solid A. It doesn't have, I mean, I don't get a whole lot of exhaust note out of it, and that's kind of how all turbo motors are. You just don't get the same satisfaction as you do in a naturally aspirated engine. But hey, I'm going to push this car a little bit harder in the turns here. I'm going to put in sport mode, and yes, the roads, gosh, this thing handles really well. Genesis, you're making some good cars. Holy cow. It's handling so well, and it's so quiet while I'm doing it. And I'm in sport mode. It's just very well sorted. It's not overly bumpy. There's hardly any body roll in this vehicle. It's very stable. It's just very impressive overall. But let's sum this bad boy up and finish up this review. Overall, this Genesis G80 has really impressed me. I can't say enough about this car. Interior quality could be a tiny bit better in terms of just quality of materials, but fit and finish is really impressive. This motor is extraordinarily impressive for the price point. The transmission's really good overall. Handling is surprisingly good. This is just a really good complete package by Genesis. They got something really good going on there in Korea. And I know they're all, not just as Genesis brand, but all of those Korean automakers are doing a really good job of increasing their quality and overall greatness of their vehicles. But I'll see you guys in the comments below. This one is really impressive, and I can't wait to test drive the G70 and the G90 one day. Until next time, peace.